On this segment of my IGN Unfiltered conversation with Harmonix co-founder Alex Rigopulos, Alex talks about the success of Dance Central, the return of Rock Band this generation with Rock Band 4, and the future of the music game genre. Now into the sort of post-Rock Band era, you've got Dance Central. Where did the idea for Dance Central come from, and how quickly does Microsoft say yes when you're pitching it to them? Or did they come to you?
Well, no, so it was pretty interesting, actually. So this was around, I would say, about 2009, around the time we were releasing the Beatles. It was obvious that the big boom in the band games was kind of coming to a close. I mean, there was still a business there, but it wasn't like from the heyday in 2007, 2008, right? So it was clear that we needed to start coming up with some new concepts. What was our next game going to be? And in the same way that we looked at some of the early rhythm games in Japan and thought, like, okay, how can we do that, but better and in a way that's appropriate for a Western audience and all that. Obviously, Dance Dance Revolution had been very successful and continued to be successful, but on some level, it was like a stepping game and not really a dancing game. Like, dancing involves your whole body, and so we thought, okay, how can we make a dancing game that's better, one that really involves engaging your entire body in the music? And so we started prototyping, and Kinect, we didn't know anything about Kinect at this point. We were just, we were using various kind of off-the-shelf motion controllers, and we had, at this point, manufactured millions of guitars and drums and stuff. We thought maybe we can manufacture like a custom body tracking controller, right? So we were prototyping gameplay, and it was really promising. And then Microsoft booked a meeting with us, I think at GDC, and disclosed to us their plans for Kinect. And we all just looked at each other and like, well, it just so happens we have something that would be perfect for that. And so we, showed them what we were up to with Dance Central, and it was a very easy partnership to figure out at that point, because that game and that technology were like made for each other.
Oh, that's awesome. And in fact, on that note, I'm curious. So then we had Dance Central 2. There was another one, but then when Microsoft's launching the Xbox One, fast forward a few years, how on earth do they not call you to have a Dance Central 3 ready to go for launch? Dance Central was arguably the best and probably the best-selling outside of the pack-in game Kinect game there was. What were you guys just sort of on other projects and just couldn't do it, or was there something else going on there?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for Microsoft, obviously, but my guess is that we had done Dance Central 1, which was our our biggest seller on Kinect. It had a crazy attach rate, as you said, to the Kinect. We did Dance Central 2, which improved in a lot of ways, but actually sold less well. Then we actually did a Dance Central 3 for the Xbox 360 and Kinect, which was improved. It was better in a lot of ways than the earlier titles, but also sold less well than the previous two. So there was a tapering sales curve that was not so dissimilar from what we had seen with the with the Rock Band and Guitar Hero sales taper as well. And so I'm just guessing at this point, but if I'm Microsoft, I'm thinking like, well, it's not clear that title would have the power to really move the dial again for this. Plus, my guess is that normally with a new console launch, they're maybe focused on wooing the core gamers in the beginning, and the Dance Central was never for the core gamers. So this is all just speculation in any case.
Makes sense. By the time Fantasia Music Evolved releases, Kinect had more or less already been abandoned by Microsoft at that point. Did you guys have any idea that situation with Kinect was coming, and do you have any regrets about that project, or is it just sort of there's nothing you can do about it and you move forward?
Well, I would say we had some sense that it could be coming, simply because Microsoft was in a very difficult market share battle with Sony, who was selling the PS4 at a substantially lower price point. And a big chunk of the cost structure on the Xbox One was clearly the Kinect, which is an expensive piece of technology in every box. And the early adopters of the expensive new consoles, the core gamers, never really cared about Kinect. So there was a lot of belly aching among the core gamer community about the expensive, the price point of the Xbox One because of this piece of technology that they didn't care about. So we saw all of that, and that's just a force of gravity. And I think ultimately, I don't begrudge Microsoft. They made a decision that was probably the right decision for the console, which was to unbundle it. Now, of course, for us, making a title that presumed 100% attach. I mean, we basically greenlit that project presuming 100% attach of the Kinect to the Xbox One platform. That was a tough blow, and kind of sealed the fate of that title in a lot of ways, I think. But that's business. You said, like, would we do anything differently? I mean, maybe we wouldn't have committed to a project of that size, obviously, if we had known that that's the way things were going to break.
Yeah. So I'm curious, I've been wanting to ask you this ever since Rock Band 4 was announced and came out. Because the timing of not only the release, but the announcements of Activision bringing Guitar Hero back with Guitar Hero Live, and you guys bringing Rock Band back with Rock Band 4, were so close. They practically happened simultaneously. So did you guys start development, and through record industry people, Activision gets word and says, "Oh crap, we better get this going too"? Or is it the opposite? Does Activision start? Do you hear rumblings through contacts, and you guys go, "Uh-oh, they're bringing it back. This is our chance." Like, do you have any insight into how that happened?
I think we and they were all looking at the same data, right? So both franchises had devoted fan bases from the prior console generation who, were probably waiting for a comeback of some kind. I don't think either of us wanted to get out there in the first holiday season when the installed base of the new the new consoles is still pretty small. So I would say by holiday of 2015, when both of us came back with those franchises, both of us had calculated that there was, a critical mass on the new consoles that would be ready to buy those games. So I think it was really just both of us looking at the same market evolution and making the call to pull the trigger, at the same time.
And you guys pulled off some pretty unprecedented stuff. You carried forward the DLC on the Xbox platform. Did when you first approached Microsoft about that, did they laugh at you, or do they right away go, "Yeah, we can make that work for you"?
Probably somewhere in between those two things. Like, we had the same conversation with Sony as well, and it was a massive, massive undertaking because you're talking about thousands and thousands of independent DLC offerings, each one of which needs to be manually submitted, which had been done over a period of like 5 years by much larger organizations, on both sides, back in the heyday, so convincing both Microsoft and Sony to do the work that was going to be necessary to reprop all of those offers for the new consoles. It was a tough proposition. It was a big ask to both of them, because it was a lot of work on our side, but also a lot of work on their side, right? Right, and neither, the game is not as big in this generation nearly as it was in the last generation. So it was like a lot of work for less return for them. So, I would say that we're pretty grateful to both Microsoft and Sony for doing the work to make that possible, and it was just a huge priority for us because we thought it was going to be critical to our players who had invested. In some cases, we have whales who have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on their DLC catalogs on the last generation. To start over on this generation and say, "Hey, guess what, everybody? You're going to have to, rebuy all the DLC you want." It might have been more lucrative for us to do that, but it just felt wrong. And ultimately, we just felt like we had to bite the bullet, do the work, and do what was right for the fan base. So,
that you mentioning whales, are there people out there? Is there a person or multiple people who actually own every single song?
A few, yep. We have some folks who have thousands of pieces of DLC, and some who literally have every piece of content we have ever released.
And I guess now with on the new consoles with external hard drives, you can fit it all. But the biggest. There was on the 360. There were 250 gig drives. Is that even enough? to hold everything, or
I don't know.
Do you have any idea?
No, I think 250s would not be enough. I think they were already using external drives even on the last generation. It's crazy.
Man. So I'm probably going to look real dumb asking this, but I have you here. I'm just going to take a shot anyway. I heard a rumor a long, long time ago that from a person I trust, but that I know that you're already like laughing, but that there was talk of bringing Rock Band back, but that you guys were talking to Activision about like uniting the families and say, well, let's, this whole thing crashed. Let's just come back as one thing together. Was there any truth to that at all?
Oh, possibly some. I mean, the Activision people we have known for a long time. We developed Guitar Hero 2, which was published by Activision after the acquisition, so we know lots of people there. We were through lawsuits with them. We were, when Rock Band and Guitar Hero were competing. We know lots of folks there, so we've kicked around all manners of ideas over the years, and so maybe that was one manifestation of that. So it's like we've been fierce competitors at various points. We may work together on projects in the future. Who knows?
Yeah. Any chance that over the next year? I mean, so we're a nice way into Rock Band 4 now. Is there still a chance we might see some big name artists pop up? I mean, we saw the Who, the big Who pack pop up well into the Rock Band life cycle, but the Metallicas, the Springsteens, some of these sort of bigger artists that we either never had or it's been forever. Is there still a shot that some of these big boys might come around to Rock Band one day?
Yeah, I mean, we hope to continue to invest in Rock Band as a living platform for a long time. We're still releasing weekly DLC at this point, and we hope to for a long time. We just added a major new feature to the system, the synchronous online multiplayer.
Yes.
And so we hope that it remains a fertile platform for a long time, and we maintain an active dialogue with all the major music companies, a lot of major music managers, like trying to get some of those artists who have been holdouts for a while or who we haven't had in a while. So absolutely, I would say, never say never on some of that stuff. The flip side is, when we were selling whatever, 5-7 million, units a year of the franchise, there was enough cash flow to make it worth their while financially, and not just because it was something that was cool, right? And when you're dealing with, artists, some of the artists of that stature, like if you can't wave a 7-figure check in front of them, it's hard to get them to even, pay attention, right? So what we get is often we get the bigger artists, who still play ball with us in large part because they like the game and they're just they want to be involved with it. I would also say that we have lots of new stuff in the works that isn't Rock Band, and often with the new projects, either because the budgets are bigger or because it's new and new things, it's shiny objects. It's sometimes easier to attract the attention of some of those giant artists.
Who's the biggest artist that you never got or have yet to get that you've always wanted in Rock Band?
Led Zeppelin. I mean, obviously it's
the obvious answer, but still.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's like I love Zeppelin. I played in a Zeppelin cover band in high school. It's like lots of people would love to see their music in the game. It would be wicked fun to play in the game. We've asked repeatedly.
Did you ever get close? Did you ever get a meeting with Jimmy Page or?
Oh, we've had dialogue with the band. Absolutely. Like I think they've given it serious consideration, but for various reasons it hasn't been right for them. So.
Oh, that is a shame.
Never say never. You never know with these things.
What do you feel like the future of Rock Band is? I mean, we've got Rock Band VR coming up.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, obviously with the traditional console Rock Band, we're going to keep nurturing it in the obvious ways, I think, primarily with content, but also some, gradual feature evolution. In terms of the big, bold evolution of the franchise, Rock Band VR is our next step. It's a pretty radical departure from what Rock Band has been in the past, and we'll see how that pans out.
So for those that may not be familiar with what it is, because as we record, it's not out yet.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to try it. So what's sort of the elevator pitch version? Because I think people think, oh, okay, well, so I'm seeing the Note Highway in VR. What is it, and what makes it cool by being in VR?
Sure. Well, actually, let me answer that by telling you a little bit of the kind of origin story and how we got to where we were. So, when we began talking with Oculus and we had an opportunity to start working on Rock Band in VR, the first thing we did, obviously, was just hook up Rock Band in VR, with the Note Highway, and it's pretty cool. You're there in VR. The track is suddenly in 3D. It's all really cool. But the thing that immediately becomes obvious within the first few minutes of playing with it is that Rock Band gameplay makes you look at one spot
just
on the
staring
screen.
at the note highway,
you can't even blink. In the fast passages, 16th notes rolling by, you don't even want to blink. So you're hyper fixated on this one point in space from the beginning of the music to the end, which is part of what makes Rock Band so kind of hypnotic in a regular console game context. But in VR, that fixation on one point in space is the opposite of what's awesome about VR. In VR, you want to be in the space and looking around and absorbing everything that's great about being in that space. So our approach with Rock Band VR was, on the one hand, to preserve the classic gameplay, because there are people who are just going to want to do that, and it is cool. And in fact, we've taken a slightly different, the gameplay is identical, but we've taken a different approach to the visuals that's kind of tailored for VR. So we've really tried to make the track, the Note Highway, really beautiful, more so in a way than we've ever had a chance to do in the past. But the really exciting thing, I think, about Rock Band VR is that we invented completely new guitar gameplay to play to the strengths and the virtues of VR. And what we really want players to be able to do is be in the space, be on stage, look at these throngs of adoring fans gazing up into their eyes, be able to look at all their band members playing their instruments, gaze up at the searing lights, have the live rock performance experience to be there.
Which is what your company is all about.
Yes, and so doing that required inventing new guitar gameplay that doesn't require you to look at a track all the time. So the starting point for that was just building a guitar performance simulation system where you hold down various chord configurations on the guitar, you start strumming, and you start producing music. And with quite a high degree of control over the music that's coming out by choices that you make about how you're strumming and fingering and whatnot. So there's no gameplay there yet. It's just an awesome kind of guitar performance simulator that feels really good. From there, once we had that, we built gameplay that doesn't require you to gaze at an interface all the time. Essentially, there are lots of different things that we will score you for. We will, say, at the top of every section, cue you on specific chord configurations you should be holding, so you kind of need to check in to pay attention to that every once in a while. That's pretty cool. We also score you for changing your hand position in synchrony with the actual harmony and the music changing, what we call chord following. Doesn't require you to look at an interface because you can hear it in the music once you've played a few times. We also score you for different kinds of pattern building. So there's a Tony Hawk style trick book that recognizes certain pattern changes.
That's cool.
You can choose any combination of chords you want to construct those patterns, so there's a lot of creative agency in the music making, but there are these objectives of specific patterns that we'll recognize and score you for. And then there's a whole overdrive system as well layered on top of that. So there are all these different ways of earning score in the game that makes it a more SSX or Tony Hawk style score acquisition system on top of this performative guitar experience that feels really amazing.
And you slap one of the touch controllers onto the neck of your guitar, is that correct?
Yeah, or the head of your guitar, there's a clip that actually ships with the touch controllers, and you can use any of your, a current Rock Band guitar. And so you take the guitar right into the game with you. Put on your riff,
cool.
Look down, and the guitar is there with you in the space. It's really awesome for immersion, actually.
So I want to pivot for a second here, because I have to ask you, I didn't actually know that you were in Broken Age until I played the game, and I was like, I know that voice. Now I know who it is. You backed Double Fine's Broken Age at a high level, to no doubt to support your friends at Double Fine, and that enabled you got to be a voice in the game. You actually had a pretty substantial role. How fun was that?
It was tremendously fun. I had never done anything like that. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Double Fine and Tim, and so I was very happy just to be supportive of the game. But actually making that cameo as a character was super fun. I've never done voice acting of any kind or any acting of any kind, right? So super amateur. But they had a voice director, this woman named Chris Brown, who's fantastically talented.
Yeah, you see her a lot on the documentary.
Yes, who handheld me through the whole thing and made it a really entertaining experience. So.
That's so great. I've heard that Harmonix has has a support system in place at the company that allows your employees to go off on tour with their bands. Is that accurate?
Sort of. I mean, essentially, we very much want our employees to have, rich lives outside of their day jobs, right? And so for our visual artists, that might be their visual art career, but often for many of our people, whether it's obviously our audio team or even their engineers and artists, many of the artists and engineers and everything else in the company are also in bands. And so if they want to take some time off to go live in that world for a while, normally we're pretty supportive of it. We need to make sure that it works with our production schedules and whatnot, but yeah, we want our people to be developing as musicians and be inspired as musicians as well as everything else.
That's great. That's amazing. I love that. In fact, like many Harmonix employees, you're in a band. You're in a band. It's if I have it correct, it's with your brother Chris.
Yeah.
And the band is called Newfane.
That is correct.
So what kind of music do you guys play, and what instrument do you play?
I play drums in that band, and it is with my brother Chris, who actually works with me at Harmonix. He's our chief operating officer, and Greg LaPiccolo, who has worked at Harmonix for years on bass, and a guy named Greg Huang, who's our singer-songwriter. It's alt rock. It's not a serious endeavor. It's a bunch of middle-aged guys just like playing rock for fun, but it's all original songs. Check us out on newfane.bandcamp.com.
That's awesome.
We have a lot of fun with it.
What does music do for you? Playing music in Newfane, what does it do for you creatively and emotionally?
Well, just going back to some of the comments I made earlier on, there is something just mysteriously and profoundly joyful about playing music, about your body moving in synchrony with sound, about making sound, about doing it with a group of other people, about having having your heartstrings tugged by this kind of this mysterious abstract sound wave somehow, unlike every other art form, right? It's like writing, film, painting, it's all representational in some way. But music is this one art form that is completely abstract and yet has this power to move us emotionally on this limbic level. It's crazy, and that's certainly true when you're just listening to music as a listener, as a consumer of it. But it is doubly true when you are actively involved in making music. And I said we play in a band. It's not a serious endeavor for us, but it is still this just magically joyful experience to play music. So I hope I'm doing it to the day I die.
That's awesome. Last question I have for you. I'm curious, you've brought Rock Band back. You've got these other projects, Rock Band VR, Drop Mix. What's the future of Harmonix? Because the company has such a unique skill set that, what kind of projects do you see the company taking on over the next 5 years?
Well, I would say that there is a kind of a guiding theme for us right now as we try to invent new kinds of music gameplay. And that relates to what I'll call musical agency. Meaning, if you look at the history of music games and rhythm action games, those games have mostly been games where you are prescribed a set of tasks and you are judged based on your ability to perform those tasks, right? There's no creative agency on the part of the player. Like in Rock Band, there is a recording and your job is to faithfully render that recording for your performance, right? And if there's any binding theme in our projects going forward right now, I would say it's that we are trying to introduce ways for people to express themselves and make creative choices through the gameplay that will make the gameplay more interesting, that will make it more interesting and deeper as a musical experience. So for example, in Rock Band VR, through this new gameplay, the player has the opportunity to make every single performance his or her own. Every performance is different and new and makes it kind of mysterious as a musical performance, not just as a gameplay experience. In this karaoke game we're making for Gear VR, SingSpace, conventionally karaoke games have just judged you based upon your ability to sing and pitch. That's fine, but in SingSpace we're very much using an audience of other users to judge you based upon how entertaining you are. So if you're entertaining as a singer, your pitch accuracy maybe is not so important, like how expressive and interesting are you as a singer. In Drop Mix, every performance is different, because combining these ingredients gets you these surprising results that sometimes are okay, and then occasionally you get these amazing combinations and you've created something that didn't exist before that sounds incredible.
Which you can save those.
Then you can save those and you can share them. And so this kind of creative agency over music is a theme that I think you will see a lot of in Harmonix games over years to come.
So Harmonix's work is not yet done.
Oh no,
that's what you're telling me.
Not in the least.
For much more on Alex Rigopulos' fascinating career at Harmonix, be sure to check back every week for new segments from this interview, and check back every month for brand new episodes of IGN Unfiltered.